Hi, my name is Beyond, and welcome back, or welcome to, if you're new, to my writing channel. I'm back to talk about my book. If you're new, I am trying to publish a book of mine. Well, the first of a long series. And I wanted to talk about it. Sorry. Because I wanted people to be like, oh, I think I want to read that, or if you're interested. I don't know. But yeah, so I wanted to do that. And yeah, so today I have been talking about this for such a long time, and we're finally doing it. I'm finally doing it. We're finally talking about the history of my book. Now, the history in the book, not like me, how I wanted to write it. I'm not, no, this is the history in the series. I've been talking about this for a while, and I'm glad. I hope people are happy that I'm finally doing it. This is going to be a two-parter. This is part one, and you're not going to have to wait for part two because I'm going to upload part one and two at the same time, so you don't have to wait. The reason why I'm doing that is because I want to make it shorter so people will actually watch it. But a lot of people may have put it off, like left already because it's been a minute. I'm just ranting. But if you stayed, cool. We're going to talk about history now. History that I made. Let's go. I have my computer right over here because I had to write it down. Most of this stuff is actually talked about in the prologue of the book because I already wrote it. I'm in the process of editing, my book, and I'm gonna try and give it to proofreaders in August, sometime around that time. So yeah, this is like I'm trying to do this. So anyway, my computer's over here. I wrote down kind of like what's happening. Yeah, so let's just get straight into it because I have been waiting for way too long to do this. I have to sneeze. Hold on. Anyway, all right. So this is gonna tie into abilities. This is a whole thing. Let's just get into it. So Viktor Agapov is the first ability user to be found, and so if you can tell by his name, this is set in Russia. We love the Russians. Anyway, so his element was air. So technically, we know that abilities have been around for years before Victor. They could have been here for, I don't know, we don't know how long they were there, but they've been here forever. It's like a human mystery, like, oh, how did humans come to exist? Oh, when did abilities come to exist? We don't know, but we know, I we as if this is actually history, but that Victor over here was the first one to be found, and as such, the very first ability to be seen was air. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about with air, like with ability stuff, if you're new, you should watch the abilities video that I made. I'll probably link it somewhere because that's kind of important. Anyway, so Victor is the first one to be found in Russia during the Tsardom. The Tsar, which is, the emperor, emperor, king, and queen, that kind of, they had a monarchy. Russia was a monarchy back in the 1800s, because this was 1815 when he was first found. And he was found by a fisherman. And in 1815, Victor over here was 35 years old. He was unmarried. He was not with anybody. He was living with his parents and like trying to, doing odd jobs to try and sustain them because they're not well off. They're very much peasants. Okay, they're peasants. So they all are trying to like figure things out. So yes, and we love Victor, right? We love him so much. In fact, I loved him so much that I decided to execute him in 1816. So that's what I did. He's dead. He died in 1816. Well, no, he was murdered in 1816 because the Tsar, Tsar, ruled that, no, he's a witch. We're gonna kill him. So they did. He's the guy of the devil. He's a man of the devil. So they killed him. 1816, the day after his birthday. So he was 36 years old. And his parents were also punished for hiding him because, it was obvious that he had this ability since he was young. So they were punished. They were not killed, but they were punished. And so his friend Dmitry Petrov is his name. Uh, he was actually there for the execution. A lot of people were. It was public, obviously, like kill the witch and shit, you know? So, Dmitry. So, Dmitry, let's have a little backstory of Dmitry. Dmitry and Victor have known each other for a few years now. Like early 1800s, they were friends. They met each other and, you know, they hit it off, especially after Victor found out that Dmitry also has an air related ability. He is also an air elemental, so they bonded over that. It's like, oh my god, I'm not alone. I'm not like a freak or whatever. Like I'm not like a guy of the devil or anything. So yeah, Dmitry was like, hey dude, there's other people like us, and they kind of like branched off and kind of like hung out around these people because Dmitry knew these people. Dmitry has a lot of connections and he knew a lot of air elementals. I will talk about why there's only really air elementals in a second. But yeah, so yeah, so like Dmitry was one who like introduced Victor into that world, but Victor is the one who was found on accident, and so he's the one that was executed. And of course, Dmitry, being Dmitry, is like, hey, that's not okay. So he challenged the Tsar. He was like, dude, you can't do that. You can't just kill somebody for something they were born with. And obviously that didn't go well because that started a civil war. Because so of course all the other air elementals that he knew and stuff like that, or he didn't even know, they all started to go against the Tsar because. Sorry, this is not a good look from my chin. I don't really care, but I think it's funny. Anyway, I'm distracted. So they were like, all the air elementals and stuff, they were like, that's not fun. So we're going to challenge the Tsar and the whole Russian government. It obviously wasn't called the Russia at that point, but I'm going to call it Russia because it is Russia to me right now. To all of us. So yeah, they started to challenge the Tsar and they fought. It turned into a whole Cold War, a civil war with Dmitry leading it, which this is why Russia became known as the Wind Kingdom. They are called the Wind Kingdom because pretty much almost all of the ability users there at that time were air elementals. So of course the Wind Kingdom was not a good name. It was derogatory. It was meant to like pretty much a sign of weakness. It was not. It was like the devil or whatever, because you know people blamed the devil on everything back then. They still do. God, grow up. But yeah, so pretty much it was the devil, the Wind Kingdom. And so this was shown as derogatory until the end of the Third War. Yes, there are 3 wars instead of 2. The reason why is because the Civil War turns into a world war. So this is technically the First World War. So getting into that, the people started to kind of show themselves more. It started with Russia, obviously, then it kind of branched off further into Europe, went over to like France and China and the US eventually. The US is a very new country at this point, so they're like, this is a bad time. But they did it anyway. Wait, hold your horses. Sorry. But yeah, so the US, they're not new, but they're new, you know, so it's like a whole thing. Anyway, so like for example, this is also kind of made it so people got other names. Like Russia was known as the Wind Kingdom. Japan would be known as like the Nation of Wildfire. Or I'm probably gonna change the name because of wildfire. I don't know. I think I dig it. If you dig it, you can definitely tell me. But I might be changing it because most people in Japan were fire elementals, and like so on and so forth. Right? The nation. It didn't like that. They had different abilities, but most of them were elemental based, and those were like the main ones. It's like okay, Japan was fire. The U.S. was earth, Russia was air. It was that kind of thing. So that's how they got their derogatory names, which would then not be seen as derogatory years later. But for a good chunk of this whole thing, it was very derogatory. It was a sign of weakness, and it was a sign of disorder. So that's kind of what happened. So as these people started to show themselves and to fight against their governments and their monarchies, this started the Great War, the First World War. World War I and the Great War are used interchangeably. Only this war is labeled as the Great War. So if you were talking to someone, it's like, hey, talk about the Great War, you're talking about this one. You're not talking about anything else. So this war was not as long as yeah, we're not in the fourth one yet. This one is not as long as the third one. The second one for us. This is difficult. It lasted for 5 years. This war lasted for 5 years. So pretty much Dmitri started this war in like 1816. And it kind of picked up near the end of 1816. Victor was born in the earlier months of the year. Of course, I don't know this because I didn't flesh him out enough. But he's just a dude. But yes, this was like late 1816 when this really, like, this war became really quick. It really came quick. And it lasted for 5 years. So you do the math and you figure out when it ended. I'm not going to tell you. Just do the math, just count. And the way this war ended was a peace agreement. So Dmitri was the one who signed it. And it was pretty much saying, like, okay, we're not going to fight anymore. We are confirming that ability users are not witches and they're not like of the devil. They're, normal people with weird ass powers. That's pretty much that's kind of like, I guess, the difference. So no one was blamed. It was all just a peace agreement saying, okay, we're done with this war. But what's interesting about that is Dmitri, my boy, my love, went missing after he signed it. His body was never found. He was never confirmed to be dead. Of course, now today he would be dead, but his body was never found. His remains were never found. He just went off the grid. People think he, in the book, committed suicide or just went off the grid, just wanted to get away, or maybe wanted the Tsardom or whatever, like he was like assassinated and they just covered it up really well. No one knows. Even today, in the book, it's still a mystery as to what happened to Dmitri. They still don't know what happened to him. So, kind of like a little fact before we kind of continue. After this peace agreement was signed, the term human began to kind of come up, which obviously it's not really a term. It's what we are. We're humans. But it was used in a derogatory term because human, that term, was used to describe just people without abilities. So pretty much it was kind of a way of saying, hey, these ability users, they're not human. They're anything but human. So that's why, hey, oh, like, that's a human and that's an ability user. They're not the same. That's pretty much what they were trying to separate them. That's what they were trying to do. And it was very derogatory. It was very insulting, and they couldn't really fight that. But it's actually still a term used today, human, to describe non-ability users. It is not as derogatory. However, like, most people will be like, okay, that's okay. But some people, this isn't just like older folk or anything, because older folk are dead at this point if they thought that this was derogatory. But like, it's just it's just people who grew up with it. It can still be seen as derogatory, so you kind of have to be careful. If you're gonna use this term, like, verbally in front of somebody, you probably want to think before you do that, because you don't know if it's actually going to be derogatory to that person. I said derogatory a lot. So, yeah. That was part one. That was 14 minutes long. And so part 2 is actually not going to be that long. So yeah, that's pretty much so that was the end of the war. We had Victor murdered. Dmitri starts the war, turns into a civil war. Then it turns into a great war. World War I, and then it eventually starts in a peace agreement. Dmitri signs it. He goes missing. The term human becomes a more known thing, and it is another way to separate both humans and ability users. So that was part 1. Part 2 is going to be uploaded with this, so you don't have to wait. And I'll see you, if you're going to watch the next one, I'll see you in a few seconds.